Well, you may remember way back in April, just a little over a month into quarantine, and with hopes that it would pass quickly, I conducted a little experiment in our kitchen to see just how little we could live with and just how much we could live without. Now, as hospitality season begins to pick up, I bet you're wondering what happened with my little experiment. Let's find out coming up next. Well, hello friend, I'm Mary Beth from the AtWhatCostBlog.com, where we are finding God's truth in our everyday lives. And around here, the best way that we have found to make that happen is by living a more minimalistic lifestyle while still keeping the things that are important to us. We are engaging in God's truth and applying it to our lives on a daily basis. And one of the biggest areas in our home that we have felt the impact of this is right here in our kitchen. A verse from Hebrews stuck out to me when I was thinking about this whole kitchen experiment and how things have gone, and now how we're supposed to handle things going back into this kind of hospitality season that is fast approaching. Hebrews 13:16 says, "And do not forget to do good and to share with others, for with such sacrifices, God is pleased." Now, there are a lot of verses about hospitality and fellowship in the Bible, but this one stuck out to me for two reasons. One, when I wanted to host something in the past, it would be a 2-day, all day, cram everything in the closet, power clean this house, just to feel like I could have guests in our home. And even if I was exhausted by the time the event rolled around, at least we were guest ready and the show could go on. The second was I began to question, was I doing good in sharing with others when I would focus most of my energies on the appearance of our home and cling to items that I was trying to find a space for rather than enjoying all of the fellowship. And I would have a good time, but if you're anything like me, you were sitting in the background just wondering, is my house good enough? Does the food look good enough? How is all of this happening? Are people having a good time? And really worrying about the surface level stuff, not focusing on the deep and lasting fellowship that we can share with others. Before family minimalism, this was really starting to come into view for me. And after social distancing, it became even more clear that even though I had reduced down items, because our circumstances had changed and our habits had not, there were some things in this house that were getting pretty overwhelming. So let's recap a little bit about where we were, what happened, and where we are now. So the first issue was we had way too many dishes. Now, it didn't become apparent to us because the kids would eat breakfast in the morning, they'd go off to school, and I wouldn't see them again until the evening. So having 2 plates per person, sometimes even 3, wasn't really that big of a deal. We just didn't use them. The other issue was access. Everything was on a low enough shelf that they could grab what they needed, which was great until we stopped washing the dishes after we grabbed what we needed. We would just use cup after cup, dish after dish, and not really think about cleaning those things in between. I started to realize that we could live with a whole lot less. So I started making things a little less accessible. I only left us what we really needed, and I tucked away a bunch of items that I knew that we could live without, just to make sure that we could live in this lifestyle, but I didn't want to get rid of things because I knew that eventually we would be hosting again in our home. I didn't want to have a bunch of stuff that I had to buy again. So I held on to some items, I made them very difficult to get to, and a few things happened. The first was that we changed our habits. If someone wanted to dirty up another dish, they had to wash the one they used in the first place. We also grew to be more intentional with our use of dishes. So rather than pulling another cutting board out and then a plate, we would cut the apple right there on the plate and dirty up one less dish to do. But 2 other things began to happen as we reduced the number of dishes that we used. I actually started enjoying cooking in our kitchen a lot more. I didn't have to walk into the kitchen faced with all the dirty dishes and have to clean everything up just to dirty it all up again. I could walk into our kitchen and have everything that I needed just at my fingertips, ready to go, and I could cook a meal that was satisfying without having to expend all of my energy just to get ready. The next impact was one that was had over our whole household. Not only did my enjoyment of cooking go up, but the overall happiness in our home was on the rise. There's just something about a clean kitchen that makes it feel like the heart of the home is really in order and everything is where it needs to be. I'm wondering if you found that in your home as well. If you have a clean kitchen, don't you just feel like everything's where it's supposed to be and all is right in the world? So here we are on the brink of Halloween, depending on when you're watching this, gearing up for Thanksgiving, and then it'll be Christmas, and it just seems like all of the hospitality is picking back up again. That was no more apparent than it was this past weekend when we were able to host our entire home group here, all of the kids, and we carved pumpkins and had a great time. And I remember thinking to myself, it never felt this great when we were hosting before social distancing. And yes, some of that may be because we were just happy to be with people again. But ultimately, I never moved any of those dishes back out of quarantine. In fact, after our little experiment, I donated so much more than what I had actually put up. I realized that even though in general, I don't prefer to use paper plates, I actually, to be honest with you, I completely despise paper plates. They're just like, I don't know, it's just not the same as a real dish. But during those times of fellowship, we can do things like use paper plates in a pinch. I also decided that all of this dishware that I have that is more sentimental in nature. So I have my great-grandmother's china and I have my own wedding china that I never use. So I may not use those items for the kids, but definitely coming into this Thanksgiving season, I will absolutely be more intentional about using the servingware that we treasure for sentimental reasons, but I have on hand that can be just as useful. When it came to drinkware, I didn't have to purchase anything there either. The number of cups that we had was sufficient for all of the kids, and most of the grown-ups drink soda right from the can or out of a water bottle. I also got creative in making the things that we had work. So I have a little crystal container that we put pickled okra in, and I turned the lid over to create a small little bowl for olives in a meat and cheese plate. So I didn't need all of those extra little serving dishes that I had hanging around. So all in all, I would call this experiment a success. Not only did we live with a lot less during a time when we were really over our heads with things to do, we also were able to get back into our regular lives without actually spending a whole lot of time thinking about how we were going to make our house clean up quick, how we were going to serve everyone, and what they were going to eat off of. It meant that we could spend our time really enjoying the fellowship with the people that we were with. We could really share and do good in the time that we had by sacrificing some of these things that we clung to and ultimately didn't actually need. As we move into this holiday season, I would encourage you to look at your own hospitality and see what you may be holding back on that's preventing you from having deeper fellowship with the ones that you love so much. If you've enjoyed this video, I'd love for you to give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and click the button right here. You can watch the next video in this series by clicking on the video right up here, and as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.